Let's continue now with someone who was part of that House Republican conference this afternoon. He's Congressman David Jolly of Florida. David is a member of the Appropriations Committee, also serves in the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, and we should note for the record that David is running for the United States Senate seat to be vacated by Marco Rubio. So, David, we really appreciate your time as you join us from Newsmax Washington. The personnel shift is in place. The people change, but what needs to change for House Republicans in terms of policy?
Well, that's a great question, JD, and good evening. Thank you for letting me be with you. You know, each of the candidates for Speaker pledged to get back to governing, and essentially that is the most critical issue we face as a country. You know, I had some very strong opinions about both Speaker Boehner as well as those who were going to stand to replace him, because my concern is this. We've gone from a do-nothing Congress to a try-nothing Congress. Consider the most important issues of the day, from border security to immigration to whether we agree with the president's policy in Syria, to tax reform, to debt ceiling, to a budget deal. We've been defined by what we don't do. You know, I would rather have leadership, and I would expect the new speaker will commit to governing, putting hard issues on the House floor. We get elected to wrestle with hard issues, to let the American people work its will through their elected officials. I would rather tackle hard issues like border security, like tax reform, like an end-of-year budget agreement, and stand for re-election based on what we decided to do, rather than make the calculated decision that we have seen leadership do in the past to do nothing, simply for the sake of our own political future.
And yet, with the clock being a component of this, as John Boehner steps away from the Speaker's chair, there's that budget deal interpreted by many to simply be a winning hand again for President Obama and an acquiescence by the Republican majority to the president's agenda. Is that a fair perception?
Well, I'm not sure it always is. And listen, I struggle with the current deal, but let's break it down a little bit. We have a divided government. Okay, I'm a conservative Republican serving in a conservative Congress, but we have to compete with a progressive liberal president who has all of the authority of the presidency as well. We need a bit of political sobriety right now and recognize that we are facing a potential default on our debt, a potential government shutdown on December 11th, and complete intransigence between a progressive president and our conservative Congress. Look, I believe that the conservative view of government is right for the future of the country. The president strongly disagrees. How do we actually avoid a fiscal calamity of defaulting on our debt? The most conservative principle for the most important principle for conservatives is to actually pay our debts. So how do we do that in the face of a progressive president who is demanding so much? You know, the deal that Speaker Boehner put forward, while not perfect, understand a couple of the very important things it does. It dramatically reforms SSDI to require more doctor evaluation for people who file claims for SSDI. That's a good thing.
And again, let's just go that Social Security, disability.
It makes other structural reforms to ensure the solvency of Social Security, but it creates a climate in which we can actually get a final deal done. And understand the discretionary spending numbers, the total spending numbers, are still within line of the original Paul Ryan budget. You know, the one that we were so lambasted for because the numbers were so strict. We're still actually within that framework. Is it a perfect deal? No. But I would ask every presidential candidate who tonight goes on stage to just decry the deal, where are their answers in the next 4 days to avoid a default on our debt? We need political sobriety. We need answers. It's too easy to just say no. And, you know, John Boehner could save a child from a burning car, and Rand Paul and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz would accuse him of creating traffic.
Now, this is very interesting because
and I'm willing to work with others to find them.
David, it sounds like to me you're setting forth the argument for governing and saying there's a difference between governing and campaigning for an office. Final 15 seconds to you, sir.
I would say within our party, this is not conservatives versus moderates. We are all conservatives. This is how do we achieve conservative results. We only achieve conservative results by committing to governing. Simply saying no is a failure of leadership. I wish we could have all the things conservatives want. I'm going to fight for them every day, but we have to do it in the reality of a progressive liberal president with a veto pen.
Fair enough. Next time you come back to join us, we'll talk about your Senate campaign. For now, Congressman David Jolly tonight from Newsmax Washington, we thank you. Up next, former Senator Joe Lieberman. Stay tuned.